In this video, we're going to talk about blend modes, which are a way to allow layers to affect each other and create some really interesting looks. So I'm going to start. Right now I have a group that has everything in it. I have my spaceman with a layer mask. I have my landscape. And I have a new layer called test. Now this layer simply is just a large gradient. And this is just to show you some stuff that I'm going to be doing later. So I have my spaceman, and I'm going to be changing his blend mode. Now a blend mode is a way of affecting all the layers below it. So basically you can think of it as a different way that the computer would interpret how this layer interacts with the layers below. So far we've been using the normal blend mode. Right here is where you find all the blend modes. We've been using the normal blend mode because that's the default in Photoshop. The normal blend mode just simply places one on top of the other, right? This is just like a piece of paper on top of another piece of paper. Let's change this blend mode. There's all different sorts in here. We're only going to be using a couple in this class. Let's change it to overlay and see what happens. Suddenly my spaceman kind of fades away. But notice as I move him around, he's affecting the layer below him differently. Let's switch that back to normal. Turn our landscape off and turn this test page on so that I can easily show you what some of these blend modes do. Now these are the recommended ones that I use on a regular basis. So we have the normal blend mode. This is your typical, like I said, paper on paper blend mode, right? Then we have multiply. Now what multiply does is it looks at the layer that you have selected, that you've changed to multiply, and it looks at the layers below it. And it says, whichever one is darker, show that one. So for example, right here, my spaceman looks normal. Now watch what happens as I move him. He starts to disappear. Now what's happening is it's looking at both of these layers, so it's looking at my test layer and it's looking at my spaceman layer, and it's saying, okay, this part is darker than what's in your original layer. So as you move it, it's going to take the darkest and show that. Let's go ahead and show our landscape while we're in multiply blend mode. So it's only showing which one is darker. So right here in the sky, he looks pretty normal. Move him down here. Starts to, in the darker area, it starts to show the darker layer rather than him. Let's go back to our test page. After multiply, we have screen. Screen is the same thing as multiply, but in reverse. So it only will show you what is lighter. So over here it looks normal, and as we move it, it starts to get brighter and brighter because it's only showing what the brightest part of the image is. So here's multiply and screen. Let's turn on our landscape. So it kind of allows it to be almost ghostly on top. Switch that back to normal. The next one is overlay. Now overlay is a combination of screen and multiply. With overlay, it's a way to kind of have both effects and enhance contrast. So it's going to show the lightest parts and the darkest parts. It's sort of a good mid-ground. Let's look at this in a landscape. As I move our spaceman around, he almost blends in with the landscape because there's a lot of midtones in here. Overlay is pretty useful for achieving this kind of look. We'll get into other blend modes later in the class, like hue and saturation and color and luminosity. These at the bottom. But for now, I would really stick to normal, multiply, screen, and overlay.